Hey Yagaho, it is week 5 of the GBA here in Season 6, and this week we are going up against another divisional foe, which is going to be the Pittsburgh, whatever, the Bucktooth Buckos is what I decided. It's a much more pronounceable name. Anyway, it is OldManTup. Last time we played Tup, we 6-0'd him in his first game in the GBA, so he's going to be out for looking for some avenging that loss for sure. And it's actually going to be a fantastic game, so definitely stay tuned for this one. It might actually be one of my favorite GBA games ever. Anyway, so looking at what Tup has now, Tup, my hope and my dream for this season was to get Hippowdon, and Tup had none of that because he franchised Excadrill and had a very early pick. So grabbing Hippowdon right there. But we do not, however, see a Hippowdon on this squad that he brought right here. We've got an Excadrill, which because of no Hippo, I'm going to immediately assume to be Scarf. We're going to have either Scarf or like a bulky variant, one of the two. We got a Tentacruel, Tangrowth, Rotom-Heat, M.Pidgeot, and a Liepard making a return appearance this week. So not appearing, we got Azelf, Froslass, Heracross, Lickilicky, and the aforementioned Hippowman. So reasonably pleased to see no Hippo, no Cleric, so that's good because part of my plan is to spread Toxic around. Let's go ahead and pull up what we got here, and for once we got no Mega Proto-Man making an appearance this week. We should go in order. So first and foremost, Tup's team is kinda sorta weak to some water stuff, and conveniently Greninja outspeeds his entire team if it's not Scarf. Outspeeds Mega Pidgeot by 1 point, and of course being a Mega it can't run a Scarf or anything like that. So we actually have a mixed life orb set this week. I've been waiting and waiting for an excuse to bring Neutral B, Water Shuriken. So, and finally I found the excuse this week. If it was a Sand Rush Excadrill going on, Water Shuriken actually can do some mad damage to Excadrill, especially if it's already got a little bit of chip damage on there, or if I'm in Torrent range, taking advantage of having Torrent over Protean, So, outside that we've got, we're physical Water Shuriken, of course, Hydro Pump because we're Life Orb and I want to get the max damage off possible rather than use Surf or Scald. Should be a good Hippo killer and should just deal good damage to most anything else. Ice Beam because that's going to be our Mega Pidgeot killer, which will do, I believe, 75, or at least very close to it. It's at least a very good chance to kill after rocks, doing 75%. I still wanted to put a lot of attack in there such that I could, have damaging Water Shurikens. And then we've got Night Slash, which is going to be able to take down the Azelf and Froslass that were not brought, while still dealing a decent chunk to Tentacruel on its weaker defense. So that's Greninja. For Fable, we got kind of Toxic styliness going on with Toxic and Soft Boiled, getting to run Unaware this week, or getting to run Magic Guard this week again. I'm very pleased about that. And then for the 2 attacks, no Moonblast this week. I didn't really see the need. We've just got, he's got 2 guys who are immune to Toxic, so I've got Psyshock to hit Tentacruel hard and Flamethrower to hit Excadrill reasonably hard. So that's really Uncle Fable's going to be here to do this week, is to try to spread Toxic, try to get some damage on some stuff, soften stuff up so that some of the other guys can come through, and just be there to generally, if I don't know what else to go into, we'll go into Fable and take a hit. Raptor is probably going to be leading. It's a reasonably standard Scarf set this week. 3 standard power attacks plus U-turn, and I believe I actually slowed it down, and we got to run Adamant. I actually only needed 60 speed, I think it was 60 speed, which I think outsped Greninja by 2 points. The reason for that being, if he's got a Scarfer, I figure, well, they're probably just going to put the EVs into outspeed Greninja by 1. So I'll just outspeed Greninja by 2 with Raptor Bird, and that'll be fine. Now, if he runs like max speed Scarf Excadrill, we might have a bad time, but I want to make sure we're at least faster than Mega Pidgeot, and more HP means more recoil absorbing going on. So not necessarily going to be here to kill things, but hopefully can punch some holes, and yeah, it's probably just going to be our lead to maybe force a switch or at least get off some big damage. Blitzcore is the Maximum Scumbag set. If you don't know what that is the super annoying Protect sub variant that just never freaking wants to go away ever, seems like. So we got Toxic and we got Earthquake and a little bit of about 100 attack, which should be enough to knock out a defensively invested Excadrill from full. Or yeah, pretty much from full. Definitely with some rocks damage. It's like 97% minimum, something like that, and like 110% max thereabouts. and Jolly with enough speed to outspeed a Jolly Excadrill by 1, which should also outspeed a neutral speed Tentacruel. Those being the only two things immune to Toxic on his team, and both weak to Earthquake, Stab. So that is the score this week. I gotta make sure we get Toxic Orb up, of course, but if we do, we could have a good time. Empoleon coming back again, and no AV this week because we needed Stealth Rock somewhere. Ended up to be on Empoleon because there's not a whole heck of a lot Tentacruel can do to Empoleon. It can spin, obviously, but, you know, I'm going to have Knockoff to, you know, remove his Black Sludge or whatever if that's what he's got. And other than that, we got Scald, and then we also have Aqua Jet, which is for a couple of things, notably for, you know, just priority is good, and also, you know, if something, whoops, we messed up and Excadrill's going on a rampage, you know, the combination of Aqua Jet and Water Shuriken should be able to finish it out, so we can, you know, bail ourselves out with starter type priority. And of course that means we have Torrent, so that if I get down in Torrent range, maybe something cool can happen with Aqua Jet, etc. I believe for the EVs we're max Bidef, I believe. Because of being mixed offenses, we ended up to be Sassy, which didn't really matter at all because I think Empoleon is base 60. He's got two guys who are base 50, so I think I still ended up like at least 2 points ahead with the sassy nature, so that ended up be fine. Weezing coming back again as well. We got Sludge Bomb and Flamethrower, Wisp of course, and then Protect for that, you know, that burn extra damage that Xerxes likes to say, as well as extra Black Sludge recovery. Protect kind of replacing Pain Split this week as a pseudo recovery move to just, you know, get more residual recovery. And yeah, Weezing is just Weezing, I guess, and Fable too. Here to really shut down, you know, the fighting types that we got going on, notably like Heracross. There's not a whole heck of a lot Heracross can do. I feel like there was something else. Nope, I guess it was just Heracross. Which even, you know, obviously burning Heracross is rarely a good idea. I guess it can be a good idea if it's Moxie. But you'll notice there's no Sableye this week. And part of that was because I was thinking, well, if he runs like Excadrill, it's either going to A, not stay in on a Sableye because it's going to get burned, or B, it's going to be like Sandrush with Lumberry going on. So, and of course, you know, trying to do confusion strats against Tup is probably not going to work because he is, after all, an old man. And old men tend to be very wise, so he's probably going to succeed on all of his wisdom saves, so I'm not really interested in doing that. That is the team. So we will get on into this, and I hope you will enjoy it, because I sure did. Alright, so we're going to lead up with Fast Bird and just try to get a big meaty hit on whatever comes out first, which is going to end up being a cinnamon baking oven over there. So, Double Edge is going to be the move to go for against you know, a flying resisting guy, of course. Going to be the strongest hit, and it's kind of questionable because we could very well both be Scarfed, and he could very well outspeed me. Speed investment. Although I think with my HP investment, I think I actually have a pretty decent chance to live a Volt Switch. It's like almost guaranteed if he's not plus special attack. We're just gonna click Double Edge and see what happens, and if I can just get, you know, a nice big hit off on this thing, honestly, I'm pretty fine with that. We'll also get to see what kind of Rotom it is, you know, how defensive it is. So we do outspeed, we do get a nice Double Edge off, and that does a lot of damage. We do get burned. But that did a lot of damage, and that, if it has to switch out now, then hopefully we can get rocks up, or at the very, you know, if we can get rocks up, we got a couple of, you know, at that point it's an Aqua Jet range, etc., etc. So, it does get Raptor burned, which is certainly, you know, gonna limit its utility, but even burned Raptor, like, can still deal a lot of damage. You know, maybe I should consider running Facade Staraptor. That would actually be pretty sweet. That would have been horrifying. I mean, it's not like Staraptor needs, you know, absolutely needs all 4 of its moves all the time anyway. So certainly something to think about. Anyway, we are locked into Double Edge, so that's what we're going to continue to go for. And that did around about 20%. And I can tell from that the Tangrowth has at least a little bit of defensive investment. You know, I'd say at least middling defensive investment. So we also see no leftovers, so we get a little bit of information there. And I'm just going to go ahead and switch out at this point because even though, you know, Raptor has halved attack power, that's still enough to kill some things. You know, it's still going to be enough to cash in for, you know, a solid 50%-ish on, you know, perhaps like a Mega Pidgeot or something like that. Maybe you could outspeed a Scarf Excadrill and, you know, pop up with a close combat for some, you know, chip damage to set up Greninja, etc., etc. And with question is what do we want to switch into here, because I kind of have 2 things that can probably take a hit, which are going to be Weezing and Clefable. And I think we're just going to go into Fable right here, as it's the thing that's got reliable recovery in the form of Soft Boiled. So we're going to go into Galaxy Man, and he's just going to knock off, which of course, you know, does very little damage, but gets rid of leftovers. I would, because of Weezing, you know, needing Black Sludge to protect and regain HP, whereas Clefable has Soft Boiled, I would rather lose the leftovers on Clefable than Weezing. So that ends up to be alright there. So here we got Flamethrower. I would love to, you know, get this thing Toxic, obviously. It's just going to switch out and get Regenerator, and honestly, Flamethrower is not going to deal too much, especially if it's AV, which, you know, you see a Tangrowth with no item, sort of the default assumption is probably AV, or no leftovers, I should say. My word. I will say one of my favorite things in Notepad mid-games is writing down at not lefties. So I think we're just going to click Flamethrower here, and he's going to send in this thing, presumably for Death Fodder, but Fable, you can't even kill a 90% dead Rotom-Heat. What are you doing? I mean, I didn't give you any special attacks, so whatever. Anyway, so yeah, we can certainly finish it off with another one. Right about now, I think since, you know, we saw no leftovers, I'm mostly concerned with like a Resto Chesto type thing going on. But I'm also thinking, well, maybe he'll just Volt Switch out, and I really don't want to ever give Excadrill a free time to come in. So, well, Toxic would be the better play if he were Resto Chesto. If he is, then, well, you know, that sort of sucks that I kind of wasted my Raptor for it, but, you know, whatever. I'm going to play for the Excadrill, potentially coming in off a Volt Switch. I'm figuring if he's going to sack it, he's just going to go for a big Overheat. So, he ends up to Volt Switch, and which does quite a bit, gets crit, but that's fine. And, yeah, we got a Flamethrower incoming, and really nobody wants to take a Flamethrower except for Tentacruel, which I was also considering Psyshock there, as I thought he might Volt Switch in there, and that would, of course, deal more to Tentacruel, which is what comes in, of course, here. But at the same time, I figured, well, Excadrill coming in is worse because it can deal a lot of damage, whereas if Tentacruel comes in, I can just go into Empoleon, I'll get Stealth Rock up, so whatever, you know, Psyshock would have been with a more damaging play, but Flamethrower also sort of forced in Tentacruel, if that makes any sense. You guys couldn't see, I just made the taunt animation with my hands. We're going to see a Scald here, which is going to do very little, but it is going to pick up a burn, because that's what Scald does, of course. But this week we do have leftovers to, you know, halfway negate the burn extra damage that's going to be going on. And here I'm just going to run a quick Stealth Rock, and this is his Spinner, so he's going to leave with his Spinner right now, because his Spinner can't really do anything to Empoleon. And, you know, that amount of damage wasn't really enough for me to suss out any information, but we did see, I think, did we see? Oh, yeah, we did see no leftovers, so, you know, once again, at not lefties. Here, you know, he gets this in before Stealth Rock comes up, but we got a sneak surprise. Even though I'm burned, Aqua Jet is still going to finish it off from that range. And I don't know, I was pretty happy with the with Aqua Jet, at least right there. But I felt like that, if nothing else, validated Aqua Jet getting a sneak KO. So Rotom-Heat not able to take any knockouts, at least not while it's alive. You know, we got a burn infliction here on actually. No, that burn was from Tentacruel, come to think of it. So, actually, yeah, Staraptor's burn was the only one that Rotom-Heat inflicted. Anyway, so we got Wave Man here, and she's going to go into Grass type. Now, Wave Man, I really wanted to run Ice Beam on this week. I probably wouldn't go for it in this situation regardless, because Tangrowth gets Earthquake, B probably has Assault Vest, and yeah, so we can go back into Fable. Could go into Weezing again, but Fable already lost its leftovers, so I think that's what I'm going to be more inclined to go into. Now we've got Rocks up, so if this, you know, keeps going around, at least we've got some damage coming around, although Empoleon's also now burned, so at least that means he's not going to get reburned, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I guess it makes him immune to paralysis, I suppose. But anyway, so going back into Fable here, and Power Whip does a pretty meaty chunk. And here we're faced with a decision. I can either Soft Boil back up, which, you know, obviously Power Whip is not the most accurate move in the world. And based on the amount it did, we would certainly be able to, I believe, you know, out recover it. However, if I click Soft Boil, that's also sort of a free, like, gimme Excadrill to come in and do bad things. And I believe even if we Soft Boil, since I don't have lefties, Excadrill should still be able to knock me out with Iron Head, at least if it's adamant anyway. So in the end, I decide, you know what, let's just Flamethrower. It's going to be good if he stays in. If he goes in the Tentacruel, okay, that's, you know, that's going to be the worst But I don't really want to click Psyshock when either Excadrill could come in or this could stay in. So, you know, if he stays in and kills Fable, fine. At least it puts some, you know, more damage on there. It's gonna, you know, make him so that if he switches out with Regenerator, which is ends up being what happens, you know, he's not gonna be back at full life. So I just go ahead and let Fable go down for the sake of getting, you know, a nice meaty chunk on Tangrowth. It'll be at about 75% when it comes back in, which should make it safe for Greninja KO, and just a couple of other things. You know, with Regenerator and Stealth Rock partially canceling out, of course. So right here, I think we're going to end up dropping in Weezing, and I've seen Knockoff and not Leaf Whip, Power Whip, Power Whip. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see a Leaf Storm on there as well. You know, just as a one-of special attack, certainly wouldn't be a bad idea. So we're going to drop in Weezing because, you know, threatens with Sludge Bomb, threatens with Flamethrower, but we're going to end up going for Will-O-Wisp because it's you know, we've seen physical moves from it so far. So, drops in Weezing, and I could just kill it off, but, you know, I figured, well, it's a Tangrowth, so it probably wants to switch out and get Regenerator and whatnot going on. We also were able to see from that, by the way, that's what the wait was about, was calcing to make sure it was indeed AV. So, Knockoff, since we got the burn on there, does very little damage, but unfortunately we do end up to lose Leftover, so, or Black Sludge, rather. So that's going to mean Weezing is not going to be able to regain any HP, and that kind of sucks, but it might or might not matter in the long run. So here, I feel like he's not going to stay in at this point, you know. Getting rid of Black Sludge on Weezing, okay, fine. But here I just decided to go for back-to-back Will-O-Wisp, because something else is going to come in, ends up to be this cat, which, awesome name, by the way. Mostly thinking, what is that? Heroes of New Earth sound effects? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So this thing is in, and it is now burned. I know it does Prankster T-Wavy stuff, and so I'm going to protect and see if that's what it wants to do, and that looks to be what it wants to do, so that's all well and good. I do not want to get this guy paralyzed, because as long as he has his speed, we just saw, he will outspeed Tangrowth, so that makes it so that this is a, you know, a Tangrowth shutdown with Stab, Sludge Bomb, etc., etc. So I'm thinking I want to go to somebody who's not going to get bothered by T-Wave, and that's going to be one of three guys. Either one of my two guys who was already burned, or my Gliscor, which is going to be immune from T-Wave, and, you know, see what he can do. In the end, I think it's going to end up being Empoleon, because there's not really a whole lot Liepard gets that can touch Empoleon, and it's just, you know, generally the more defensive thing to bring in, most likely to be able to endure a hit, so it's going to ignore T-Wave, etc. So we're going to go into Wave Man. And he actually switches over to Taunt instead, which is fine. Rocks are already up, and Rocks is my only non-attacking move, so Taunt's going to be effectively useless here. And I believe... You know, I don't count... Well, I guess because of the burn, yeah. Because of burn, I don't bother, you know, checking to see if Aqua Jet will be able to kill. Although, 2 Aqua Jets might actually have been able to do something, but whatever. We're just going to click Scald, and, you know, if nothing else, for sure, the combination of Scald and an Aqua Jet should be able to finish it out. So he's just going to knock off, and that will get rid of Leftovers, which could be pretty big. It's certainly going to make, you know, we're now taking a full 8th instead of effectively 16th from burn every turn. So here we are at 46 HP. And upcoming here, as we see Hank the Pidgeot come out, which I also really appreciate that name. You see, this is an interesting play here, because I don't really want to categorize it as a misplay, but I also didn't do the calc, so that's on me. Turns out a Hurricane, even from modest max, I believe max roll is 45, and I have 46 HP here. So there's the potential for me to, you know, survive a Hurricane and fire back with a Torrent boosted Scald, which would take this from 75% it's at now down to under half. I proceed to die to burn, go into a Greninja, force it out, it's dead to rocks on the way back in. However, I'm also thinking he probably, you know, there's a good chance he might want a Hidden Power. Ground or fighting or whatever, so I just decided to go for Aqua Jet and make sure that Greninja is going to be able to have the KO with Ice Beam. You know, it was going to be like maybe like an 80%-ish chance, I think, without. So this way, if he's got a little bit of extra SPDF in there or HP, it'll solidify that Greninja KO. But you know, seeing that I was going to 100% live Hurricane, probably should have just gone for Scald, and you know, hoped he. Well, obviously he's not going to miss Hurricane, but hope he doesn't have Hidden Power, which, you know, I thought he might because of you know, fighting or ground, you know, both for Aggron and for this guy right here, or for Wave Man. So anyway, As it was, we just made sure to set up for the Greninja KO, and here I have no problems just going straight in for an Ice Beam. I actually kind of want to get worn down by Life Orb because that, you know, if I can, the quicker I get into Torrent range, actually, the better. As that's gonna, you know, power up my Water Shurikens for a more likelihood of, you know, KOing on Excadrill and whatnot. So we're just gonna go straight for the safe Ice Beam, as this thing's actually gonna come in. I was kind of expecting Tentacruel, honestly, but I guess with, you know, with the Fable, you know, getting the flamethrower on there such that it was gonna come in at you know, about 75-ish% instead of at full. With, if I had done something else. That's able to let Ninja notch the KO, and this thing's going to proceed to come in. Now, I don't have Extra Sensory. Extra Sensory, you know, if it is not going to do a ton, as it's not stab, of course, not being Protean. Night Slash can potentially deal 30-ish% if he's defensive, which you know, we see no Black Sludge, so it's, you know, it's making me wonder what exactly he's going to be. We're going to get out of here. Unfortunately, Poleon's gone, so that was my main switch into this. Seeing what we got left. So Tangrowth just went down. There we go. We get some more of the counter going on. Tangrowth just went down, so that means Weezing's stock is now depleted. He can still certainly take on Excadrill fairly well enough, but you know, I don't have Fable around anymore either. So I don't really want to sack off any of my more offensive guys. So we're going to go into Gemini Man here, and we're going to see a Scald do a butt ton. And that means that's got to be Specs and a crit in order to deal like 95% damage right there. And I think it might also have to be Modest or plus special attack, whatever, in order to deal quite that much. So Weezing's Goose is officially cooked. You know, I was expecting, you know, if it was going to be defensive and not a crit and not Specs, I was expecting maybe like 30-40-ish%. So, you know, maybe be able to get off a Will-O-Wisp if I didn't get burned off Scald, etc. That's not going to be the case due to crit and Specs. Crit probably did not matter. I would have made the same play here anyway, because I would have been dead to 2 regardless, just due to Specs and apparently Max Attack Modest. So we're just going to end up clicking whatever. I guess it's going to be a Will-O-Wisp. Doesn't really matter. I don't know what. I'm calculating something, I think, for the next turn. Probably is what I'm going. Usually that's what I do. It's like I know what I'm going to do this turn, so you know, it doesn't matter. So even if I accidentally time out while I'm doing a calc, yeah, it doesn't matter because I'm dead, you know, no matter what I click. So here we're going to end up going, I believe, into Raptor Bird, because what I want to do here is just get a nice meaty hit off on this thing. Nothing I think I have left outspeeds it and can one-hit KO it. So otherwise I would go into that, obviously. So can't one-hit KO it because, of course, of the burn. But now that I see it is, you know, a very offensive Tentacruel, it makes me a little bit worried that Gliscor, you know, I feel like it's probably Modest, but if it is actually timid, then Gliscor would probably get outsped and dead to a Scald, and I do not want that to happen. That's also a little bit above where I'm confident enough that Earthquake can finish it off. I at least want to make it switch out and get some more Stealth Rock damage. So we're just going to go for a Brave Bird here and be perfectly content to sack Bird off, and that did pretty much exactly what I wanted to do. It got it down low enough to where now either of my things that we got left are going to be able to take it out, and that's definitely going to be in range for a Ninja Night Slash, and I think that's just going to be what we're going to go into and throw out and see what happens. So Greninja finally going to make an appearance. We got actually no, we had him out here earlier. Gliscor still has not made an appearance, but again, I'm not 100% sure that Gliscor is going to outspeed. I think it probably will, but I'm not 100% sure of that. So Ninja's just going to come in here and pick up a KO with Night Slash, and I think that's actually Greninja's, no, it's his second KO of the year. First one was on Tangrowth, but we got 2 guys left. So we got Pidgeot, which we outspeed for sure, and then we got an Excadrill, which is probably Scarfed, and if so is probably coming in, and it does come in. And we see Mold Breaker, which to me almost guarantees that it's Scarfed, since, you know, I got 2 Levitate guys. But we do have a Ground Immune who is not going to be hit by Earthquake, even with Mold Breaker, which is going to be Gliscor. And yeah, if we get Gliscor in for free, then that is going to be pretty alright. We'll be able to set up a sub, and you know, I'm bringing in, well, nah, I think pretty much this was his best bring, because he knows that Mega Pidgeot's going to be down to an Ice Beam. So whether he's bluffing it or not, I'm just going to buy that it is Scarfed, and we're just going to get out into Gliscor momentarily, as he's faced with the decision of, do I predict Gliscor to come in and go Iron Head? Because if I don't, and he stays in, he's, you know, bad stuff could happen. You know, you guys are smart to figure that out. So, you know, if he goes Iron Head and I don't switch, then we have the issue of, you know, he can just kill him off. So, but we are going to get up a sub here as he switches into Pidgeot, which is going to be down now well below half. And we're going to end up protecting here with, you know, go and get back up to full life. As from full life, we'll be able to live a Hurricane, and, you know, we're going to end up to need to probably endure a hit at some point because I'm going to have to take a Toxic. Or I'm going to have to, you know, Toxic him at some point, and etc. etc. So, here is a, this is a very, very, like, cerebral exchange here at the end of the game, and at some point I might have to pop up a flowchart because I can't adequately explain in narration what's going on. We gotta apply the Toxic, we know that because I don't have a move to hit it with unless it Roosts, because we are only attacking moves Earthquake. So, here we can protect and go ahead and rack up a little more Toxic damage. And, you know, from there it's just going to be sub and protect until it gets worn down. The problem is that I don't think after taking a Hurricane I'm going to have enough to make a sub. At least, you know, based on the damage that was dealing to that it dealt to Empoleon. So here we just protected. So here's a crucial turn, and this is actually where playing on Wi-Fi versus Showdown is a massive difference, because that's like he might die from Toxic right there, and if that's the case, he has to Roost this turn. So, I believe that's what happens. He would need to Roost this turn to stay alive. So, we're going to end up to Earthquake on his Roost tonight. Although I suppose setting up a sub would have been fine, but if he were to Roost. But anyway, point being that I felt like he was, I don't know, flowcharts really need to come up right now. Because the important thing here is I don't want a double down. I feel like a double down is advantageous to him. Hurricane comes, and as I attempt to kill him off with a Earthquake that turn on a catch him on a Roost, but based on the HP I was at after the Hurricane, I indeed would not have been able to make a sub, so sub would have been the wrong play right there. But now he pops that Roost, and as you saw, he survived there. So he knew he would survive because he could see his exact HP. I don't know. I don't play Showdown, so I don't know quite if HP percentage being visible would have mattered necessarily or not. But it kind of comes down to this. If I hit a double protect, then he's probably going to be dead from that range. If I don't, then, you know, Greninja will be able to finish him off. Well, if I don't, then he'll probably still die from poison. But we'll have, you know, Greninja in the back, and it might come down to a Water Shuriken. So, you know, only fitting. Of course, this is Pokemon after all. It comes down to a 50% chance. We got a coin flip right here for a double protect, and we'll see if we get it momentarily. As I'm mulling it to make sure that's the correct play, and I believe it is, because he can't keep roosting on it all day. As much as, you know, this is my best chance, I think, to avoid a double down, at least at this point in the game. And we take to the very end, but we do not get a double protect, and it's going to be a KO to Hurricane. But Toxic is also going to take him down, so we end up with a double down, which, as I mentioned, I didn't want, but you know, because of the timing of the Roost, being able to do it a turn after I expected him to do it, which he knew he could do, I wasn't sure because of, you know, Wi-Fi. You don't get to see the exact HPs, so I thought that was a pretty interesting facet of the game too. But here we go. We're just here to click Water Shuriken. At least I get to use it, right? If it hits 4 times, I have a pretty decent chance to KO. 4 or 5 times, of course, which I believe is only a 33% chance, which is why I didn't want, you know, there to be a double down here. So here comes Water Shuriken. That's pretty good damage. That's pretty good damage, and that's not 4 hits. So, oh well. You know, it came down to the last 2 turns, and really, what more could you expect? Really, even the last 1 turn. You know, I probably could have killed him with a 33% chance to hit 4 times there. So, you know, would have been nice to be in the torrent range, certainly, but can't really ask for much more than that. It was a fantastic game. Indeed, I would say this is probably in my top 5 favorite GBA games. Definitely my favorite loss, I think, and it's almost certainly in the top 5, at least if we, like, roll all the Aggron does awesome stuff games into one giant Katamari of a number 1. So, at least in that case it is. Which I definitely hope you guys in the comments can, you know, analyze this one. I think this is a game definitely worth a lot of analysis. There were, you know, a couple of turns strewn throughout the game, where different decisions could have been made that might have impacted the outcome. And then came down to at the very end on the last 2 turns, you really had no idea who was going to win, because there was a 50-50 chance on double protect, and then there was a later on there's a 33% chance on the next turn to try to hit at least 4 water shurikens and notch the game that way. So yeah, there was in-game excitement, which will lead us into Pokemon of the game, which we're gonna give it to Greninja this week. I think we're just gonna keep doing whoever I thought was the best performer on our side. We had both water starters actually going 2-1 this week, but I felt like Greninja took out the more notable threats. That being Tangrowth. This team kind of has an issue with grass types because we don't have a poke that's both bulky and has instant recovery. So we got Staraptor, of course, but that's not exactly the bulkiest thing in the world, though it does get Roost. And then the other 2 don't have reliable recovery, just leftovers. So that was definitely very threatening. And also Tentacruel, which I felt like would be a pretty good switch into Greninja in general. That's why we packed Night Slash to deal as much damage as I could. I think it was actually going to be very similar damage between Night Slash and Extra Sensory, but of course Night Slash was also mostly there to hit Azelf and Froslass. Ended up to be able to pick up the KO on Tentacruel after Raptor nuked it hard enough. So, and then also there at the literally the last turn of the game, has a chance to win. If I can just hit 1 out of 3 chance to go for 4 or 5 hits of Water Shuriken to take out the Excadrill, but unfortunately we ended up to get the minimum required, or the minimum possible, on the 1 and 3. But hey, that's certainly fine. Came down to a string of plays, which a lot of which were they're in the last sequence of turns. I really want to go in and overanalyze that over the next week, even though I probably should not. But I probably will, because I really enjoyed the facet where he knew his exact HP. I didn't. I kind of had to eyeball it, and I thought he was gonna either have to roost that turn or die, and turns out that wasn't the case, as he was able to wait, hit me while I hurricaned while he's still in the air, and or while I earthquaked while he's still in the air, and then be able to roost on the next turn when I thought, maybe at that point he doesn't have roost. So I just really enjoyed those last couple turns, and then just rolling the dice on the last couple turns. Didn't turn out our way this time, but I am a-okay with that, because if you're not a-okay with RNG, one way or the other, playing this game, then you're probably gonna have a bad time. So that's why we don't have a bad time, because we're okay with it either way. But next week, the NCO doubleheader continues against Fizzy Stardust and the Atlanta Haluches, Yo Fizz, or whatever. Big Daddy, as you might know him, and we're pretty good over here, but we're no Connor Oberst, so we will see if we can. Well, first off, we're gonna see what Fizz does this week, because I believe if he loses 4-0, that'll make it 3 in a row where we'll play the same exact record of a team, which we are currently 3-2 at still at +1. So we will be seeing if we can climb back, deeper into the positive differential, but it will certainly be a difficult one with the Vucanion coming at us next week. Stay tuned for that one. Later days.